Hey, hello, Ipek. It's so nice to be with you today. How are you
Oh,
doing?
it's lovely. Thank you, Gail. Hi, it's great. It's a big joy and pleasure. Thank you for
Yeah,
inviting me.
I'm so happy to be with you. So let me first say how we met each other. So
Mhm.
Ipek and I both are certified from Ericsson International as solution focus coach. We studied together. So we met end of last year, and it's been a great relationship. And Ipek has a training also in emotional intelligence, and as part of this self-care series I'm having, I really want to highlight emotional self-care, and Ipek has a lot to share with us. So I'm gonna let you introduce yourself in a bit more details now, Ipek.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm Ipek Stevenson. So, my background in emotional intelligence has come from my corporate world life, actually. And I got certified when I was working for the corporate companies,
Mhm.
and I helped leaders from the leadership pool for their own self-development plans, and gave them coaching and helped them understand who they are and help them understand to dig in more to find out more about themselves so they can work on themselves to get to the point that they wanted to.
Wonderful. And so, Ipek, I know emotional intelligence, we've been reading, hearing a lot about it. It's been really trendy, and everybody's talking about your EQ and not only your IQ, and oh, it's important in your professional work, in professional life, personal life. But I think it would be great if we can get a definition of what it is, and if you can tell us what emotional intelligence is for you.
Great. You're right. It's very fashionable right now to talk about EI, ECI, EQ. It all boils down to understanding who we are and who others are. And emotional intelligence, in the book definition, it says it's the ability to understand our own emotions and others' emotions that are in play in our relationships. Um, it's important in our lives because that makes it who we are, and understanding our emotions is actually an answer to the question of what is the senselessness going on around us. It's making sense of senselessness, I believe.
Wow, wonderful. Yeah, it's very clear. Thank you, Ipek, for mentioning that. So, what would you say is a relationship between our emotional intelligence and our self-care?
I see a great connection between those two. So if I may just quickly give a summary of what's in emotional intelligence. So in emotional intelligence, the study, which has a very strong validity and accuracy, that is done by Daniel Goleman.
Mhm.
Most people know who he is, but he is considered as a father of emotional intelligence. So it says that there are 4 clusters in the makeup of who we are. So that's the self-awareness, self-regulation, social awareness, and other
Mhm.
social skills. So if you understand who we are and what kicks us, and if you know how to control it, and if you can play that skill, those combination of skills, into our relationship with others, and even better, using all those 3 to develop others, that makes us like the pros of our own lives. So that's emotional intelligence in a nutshell. There are 20 different skills that people can work on to develop themselves. Not everybody needs to be an ultimate, professional on each one of them, but depending on how we operate in life and where we show up as a professional, as an individual, as whoever we are in life, and what is a matter for us in life. So then that way you can see what you need to actually develop a bit more than the
Mhm.
other one to feel more comfortable, more in peace, more with you yourself. So, and when we talk about the connection of emotional intelligence with self-care, I see it like a running loop in our lives, because you cannot have emotional intelligence without self-care. And to be able to have and apply a good self-care, you have to have a good emotional relationship, emotional intelligence, and
Mhm.
relationship with your emotions. So the more we understand about ourselves and what makes us happy, so the more we decode who we are, is going to help us to understand what do we need to do to heal ourselves in times of difficulty, in times of conflict, in times of ambiguity, or in times of lostlessness, and not finding the purpose and all that. And when you do that self-care for your own needs, which is a different set of needs for every individual, because we're not the same people when we look at everyone around us, including us. So to be able to help each other, ourselves, to find out what is it that actually helps me, comes from knowing yourself. And that's why it's a loop. There's a big connection between those two. And when you read what's out there, there are like zillions of different articles and videos and books and personal stories and personal experiences. No one can just get away without mentioning the importance of self-care and emotional intelligence, or vice versa.
So what would be, if we get practical here, what are ways you can develop this emotional intelligence?
Yeah, that's perfect. Actually, the one thing that we keep hearing, oh, you can't develop emotional intelligence. It's something that you're born with. It's just impossible. It's so difficult. This is who I am, and I can't go anywhere else other than this. I have to work on my intelligence skills. I have to work on my technical skills. So that's what we come across with when we work with people. Mostly it's just the first push before getting into what you can actually do for yourself. So it is developable. This is the good news, because when you look at the research, yes, research says there's a genetic factor in it. So how you're born, what you carry on you, yes, it has a factor in it. And also the nurture makes a big complementative addition to it. But, and the maturity, the older you get, of course, the emotional increase we see, emotional intelligence, we see that increases. But the good news is that actually when you work on this identified skills, and when you see that where you are at, that you can work on them one by one, the necessary ones, of course, not all of them, not overwhelming the 20 of them, but the ones that you really need, you can actually work on them and develop them. So it's, as we said, it's either by the help of a tool, or if you just want to start by taking simple steps, just the first address is to go and look at self-care. So what you can do for yourself, what is good for you, what is healing you, what is helping you to come closer to you, your own self, what is helping you to face your own realities, and what do you need, identifying your needs around you. There are many simple steps to tackle it.
And could you get in maybe some of them, so to help us figure out what first steps we could take in our lives to connect to our emotional intelligence and develop it?
Absolutely. Actually, there are so many things that you can find, but the most comprehensive ones that I can talk about is that the communicating how you feel to the people that you trust is one place to start. Be true to yourself. And I think there we need to calm ourselves down and say that, okay, I am one of the millions of people around me, and everybody carries those emotions, and there's no right or wrong. I need to communicate this so I can make it real, so I can hear it, I can say it, I can hear it, and I can digest it. So digestion brings the acceptance. And it's not easy. Of course, it's not easy. There's a long journey to it sometimes. There's a short journey sometimes to it. You don't know. You never know unless you try it. So you accept it. When you accept it, you actually come to peace with this emotion, whatever that emotion is that is bothering you, or that is keeping you from identifying it or accepting it. But the more, the closer you get to it, the easier to accept it. And then the other thing is, the helpful thing is to make an action plan, which can be done very easily. Small steps, every small step counts. Small steps, small accomplishments, and recognizing those accomplishments, the steps that you take, the way that you help yourself, and every single thing that you do that helps you, identifying it and acknowledging it and recognizing and celebrating it. That is the complete circle of embodying with that accomplishment. And doing what heals you, whatever it is. Is it meditation, or is it writing down your emotions? Is it staying connected to the best friends or the trusted ones around you? Or is it being with nature? Is it reading, or is it writing? Whatever it is. So to start with, I think the most important thing is to be true to yourself, and not be afraid of what you will find out, because that's you, and loving yourself actually. So that, it may sound airy-fairy sometimes, so people just push back a little when they say, but when you sit down and talk about and start asking questions and pulling things out of people, which we do in coaching sessions by deep questions, so people open up to themselves. And that's the key, helping people to open up to themselves, to be in peace with themselves so they can find what heals themselves.
So yeah, thank you so much, Ipek, for sharing that. I think it's very important. And I hear a lot of this self-awareness is a big step. So letting ourselves be and connect to ourselves and accept whatever is present. So we can work on it and let it go. And I, in this regard, I just want to share a personal experience also through this journey of mine with, being attuned with your own emotions. For many years in my past, as a young adult, I've been living with a lot of high anxiety, and but I didn't want to be an anxious person. So I would fight back this anxiety for years. Like I would just do as if it was not there and just fight and fight to the point where I exhausted myself emotionally, mentally, and even physically, and went into depression. And I started healing actually when I really let the anxiety be there, recognize it, accept it in my life. And because I was accepting it, I was able to deal with it and find ways to turn it, in a friend more than an enemy. And just I'm still anxious, but in such a different way. Like when anxiety comes, I let it be there, I accept it, I understand what's, it's behind it, and so I can deal with it and move on and get to a better, positive place. And I think it's, for me, it was my lesson of, this acceptance thing was very important. And that's my own journey, and we all have different journeys, but I wanted to share that because it's an own experience I've been sharing. And being able to express yourself and feel free to let anything that is there be without judging is a really important first step, I think. And thank you for highlighting that.
And actually, that's wonderful that you shared that, because as adults, we said that maturity helps emotional intelligence, but sometimes if you don't tackle with things that bother us when the time is right, it gets harder and harder to get over it. And then, like you said, sometimes you come to a point where you don't want yourself to be at. And then you have to tackle with something else. You have to solve something else, and layer by layer, it goes on top of each other. So therefore, there's a lot of conversations about growing up period of a human being. So the childhood and early adultship is, okay, 7 years, sometimes they say 7 years of age is a cutoff to learn something, but no, actually plasticity is reality. So our brain changes all the time, and the emotions sit and being governed in our limbic system. So, and what happens there is actually the research shows that the way to change things in limbic system is first of all a dedicated desire. So there has to be a dedicated desire there. And second of all, there has to be a motivation, the desire for change. And then here comes a goal and a practice plan. So practice, practice, practice. So changing behavior takes a long time, 21 days that the research says that if you want to change a habit. So you have to have a plan to apply that plan in your life, to do things in a different way than you used to be able to change something. But you have to have a plan. And consistently, you have to apply that plan in your daily life, whatever it is. Again, it could be something very simple. It could be a note that you write to yourself every morning when you wake up that will remind you something positive, that you can do it, positive. And in the end, when you've done all that, feedback of yourself, for yourself, and feedback from the ones that you trust around you, your trust circle, because trust is a big component in the whole game of changing things for yourself. Yeah, there's a lot of talk for the growth period, so letting kids to express themselves and giving them more chance to understand their emotions, so when they grow up, actually they don't have to faced with that wall of things that they need to change, because it's hard. It can bring you to places where you don't want to be, like you gave from your own honest example. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ipek. You're also like connecting so well, emotional intelligence with this rewiring. Like it's all the purpose of this channel I just started is about seeing as how we can self-rewire. Actually, we have the ability to change, and of course it requires some dedication and some work, but if we want, we can change, and we can work with our emotions a best way, a way that is serving ourselves. And yes, with practice, with dedication and practice and accountability, we can create actually for ourselves a better experience of life. And I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, this emotional intelligence is a resource we have, all of us, and that we can develop to our own benefit when we understand it better. And it's of course for ourselves, but also as you mentioned, in the relationship with others, because if we understand also ourselves better, we will make this effort to understand, people in our life better, and deal better with everybody's emotions, and find a way to work together in more harmony. So it's beautiful. And of course, through coaching, we are both coaches. It's a wonderful way to work also on this as part of the work that is done on this emotional intelligence. So maybe you want to say a bit more about that. I know you include it in your own practice.
I mean, emotional intelligence is all over my life. I mean, that changed my life actually when I learned about it, when I found myself in that world and digging and finding out. That was the time that I had young kids around me, and it fascinates me. Actually, it fascinates me how different we are. We're all so different from birth, from nurture, and from how we're shaped with the environment that we are in, the things that we're exposed to, people that we know, things that we read, things that we watch. I became so alert to everything that was happening to my kids, and most of them were in my control, and most of them were not in my control because they start to go to school and everything. It's a very intriguing phenomenon, really, watching how different we are, and what kicks us, what is really different, the emotions, how the emotions are energized, what changes our mood, and all those. It's in the whole study. Actually, it is found that especially the self-awareness bit, the ability to understand, identify and understand your emotions and where they come from and what they need for change, that makes up the 50% of the healthy emotional intelligence feeling for yourself. So there are 4 clusters overall that they put 20 skills underneath, but the first cluster, self-awareness, makes up 50% of the importance for the rest of the groups, because that's a starting point. And that's why it was so amazingly interesting for me when you started this initiative, because it's so highly linked to self-care, because self is who we are, and we need to be aware of who you are. Only we can do it only if we be good to ourselves, only if we accept ourselves, only if we don't judge ourselves. We can only go forward, take a step, by exploring who we are, coming face to face, and a kind of embracing who we are, our own little self inside that we sometimes hide, sometimes disguise, sometimes change and make it seen in a different way. We do so many things to ourselves, and I think we are the ones who create the hardest complexity for our own selves. So that's why self-awareness is wonderfully important. And in coaching practices, I can't be self-aware for my clients, but I would love to be there for them and help them understand who they are. And that's the primary thing as a goal that I see in our own role when we start to interact with people, to help them in their journey. Then the other skill later on in one of the clusters is empathy, that everyone now talks about. It's another buzzword empathy, put yourself in others' shoes. And yes, yeah, it is putting yourself in others' shoes. It is trying to feel like how they feel. But if you don't know about yourself, you can't do that for others. You have to know about yourself, for yourself, and really be content with it, and really have the fullness in your mind and fullness in your heart about knowing who you are, and what makes you who you are. This doesn't mean that you have to be perfect. It's just knowing who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Then maybe you can take another step towards others and help them to find out what it is for them by being in their shoes, really trying to see the world from where they look at the world. And it's not easy. It's really not easy. And it's not like liking someone and making someone like you. That's not about that. It's about really seeing that person's purpose in life, and maybe helping that person to understand what is the importance of that purpose in their life, and decode it, decipher it, understand. And maybe they continue to stick with that purpose, and sometimes they make little alterations in that purpose, or sometimes they change their journey towards that purpose, but they find it out. And it's so fascinating to be able to walk along with them in that journey. That's why that was the attraction for me in coaching, honestly, because I went through myself, like you did in my life, so many different things, and I lived and worked in many different continents, in many different countries. It forces you to find out about yourself, because if you don't know about yourself, really, it's very hard to be present in different fabrics of cultures and fabrics of organizations and fabrics of relations. I think self-awareness mainly, but all other clusters of emotional intelligence, as we said, self-regulation, social awareness, and social skills, and 20 skills that I'm not going to bore you with that goes under those clusters. They sit right in the middle of those coaching relationships. So, and maybe not every time that I use the assessment. Some people really want to dig down and deep and use the assessment. Yes, we do it. And that's a whole different picture, because people get to look at themselves with their own feedback, and get to look at themselves with other people's feedback for them, and compare and see the gaps, and then identify which gaps are really important for them to focus on for their development. Not all of them, not necessarily. We're not bionic people, so you have to pick and choose what's best for you. Sometimes people want to work with that direction, but sometimes people want to start doing it by looking inside, and taking a step to get closer to who they are really in the core. So it's really important, and it's really one of the major players in coaching relationship, I think.
Yeah, it is. It is. And and thank you for highlighting this importance of this self-awareness as starting with ourselves. And as I said, I mean, in one of my posts, like, self-care is not selfish, like self-awareness is neither this selfishness. It's just the better we know ourselves, the best of ourselves we can give to the world, and we can also support others and in their growth. So it's really like taking this time to connect to ourselves is going to have so many benefits for us and all around us. And it's this very important to pause and to self-reflect, and that's something that it's there is a lot of, we said, the trend in emotional intelligence and self-care. It's all there, but at the same time there is a contradictory message. It's like we always have to do more, and it's this always doing, being busy, and and being productive, and so it's hard to find this balance where we take this time where we have to slow down, so we can show up at our best in our life, and having this message is also doing active and doing this and that and that. So I think it's just finding this balance, and really putting the emphasis on this time we owe to ourselves, to take care of ourselves and to understand ourselves, so we can serve the world better. And it's all about, and the message, you know, we are,
Absolutely.
I think, both trying to carry on through our coaching practice and creating this safe space where our clients and our audience can really be themselves and explore. And so it's wonderful. And it's this emotional intelligence is a wonderful tool to develop for ourselves in this journey that we have in life. So
yeah.
what would you like to add, Ipek, as to conclude this time together? What is very important to you that you really want to share about emotional intelligence?
Well, there is a lot to share about emotional intelligence, but I said it gets a bit academic and it gets a bit boring towards the end. But I think that the most important thing to know is stay close to ourselves and don't be afraid what to find under that, whatever is that we just put over ourselves to hide. So we all do that, sometimes knowingly, sometimes not knowingly, not with any bad intentions, but we just react. You know, impulsiveness comes out of our limbic system, so it can't be avoided. So the more we know about ourselves, the more we can have a control of those impulsive behaviors and uncontrollable feelings that will bring balance to our lives, that will actually slow things down around us, that will just give a better feeling of the air around us. So we will not have big hikes up and going deep down feelings. So we will just more in the kind of middle area, and we will gain the ability to look at our lives from a step outwards, look into our lives and see what's going on. You know, how can I make the most of this for myself? What can I do to make the better experience for myself, instead of being trapped in those impulsive behaviors or uncontrollable emotions that sometimes gets bigger than me, that I have not been able to make sense, all those senselessness. So that's why we said emotional the capability of having the emotional intelligence, it gives you the key to make all those senselessness into a sense in life. So bringing sense into our lives, it's just for a better me. For who? Again, for me, and better my surrounding, because the more I know about myself, the more I will be able to help whoever is around me to so that they can find about themselves. And I mean, it sounds like a fairy tale, but it's not. It's not so difficult. It's just all for good cause. You know, then we can be more productive. Then we can be more managing things in a better way. Then we can run for the goal in a kind of more balanced way. Get there quicker, maybe, without creating any damage around us, because that's what we see in corporations. Yeah, so people are so goal oriented, but they really don't pay attention to social skills, emotional intelligence. They run for the goal, and they have the technical ability, they have the skills. Of course, they need those. We all need those. This is the top of the iceberg. This is what we see. So people, because it's actually easier to gain. So it doesn't happen in the limbic system. It's happening in the neocortex, the other part, the new part of the brain, where we can store the information, the decisions and the techniques and all that. So it's much easier than changing a habit or changing a behavior or helping ourselves with a new behavior. So in organizations, as I said, so we see people focus on purposes, but they just create so much damage around us and leave that damage behind. Then that damage gets up and runs after him. So they only find out when they get to the goal. Yes, something is accomplished, but there's so big cost behind it. So we can avoid all that if we can really work on it. Either big steps maybe, but mostly the easiest thing is with small steps of self-care. Recognizing who we are. So that's why I was so excited to see that you started this initiative. And when you invited me, I get, oh my goodness, that's so much to talk about. I hope we can fit it in a time period that people can watch without being bored.
I don't think they're gonna be bored. It's fascinating, and we may dig in. Have other. I'm gonna keep doing that, for a while. So we can have some specific topics and just go deeper in one particular topic, over the months, year to come, and just go deeper, because it's a big topic. What I hear and what you shared, it's also part of what I really believe in. It's like empowerment, like developing your emotional intelligence, put you in control of yourself, in control of your life, and it's giving you power actually to be who you want to be, to behave the way you want to behave, and to give what you want to give to others, and not being actually out of control and reactive, as you said. Absolutely. Really choosing the way you want to show up and what you want to bring in this world. And so it's a deep topic, and I mean, we could go much deeper in that. We'll do that later. There is one thing I'm going to ask you, Ipek. Would you mind if you have any documents that just because you mentioned this 4 big skills, and 20 skills. If we can just maybe share that, I can maybe at the end of this video, I will put the document and share it.
Pleasure.
And so it will
Daniel
be something
Goleman's
people
work.
can look into, and if our audience wants more information, of course we are available.
Absolutely. And after that, if you get any questions, if anyone wants to put out a feedback, I'm so happy to start a conversation on that, because I learn from every conversation, and I'm so curious to learn what people think, because we're all so different, as I said, and that makes the gift. So we need to hear what people think, how they experience, or if they would like to share their own experiences, not necessarily going into detail, but for us to learn something from that experience. That would be wonderful too.
Yes, I'm all about that. Starting conversation and sharing, and just all of us learning and evolving together, and self-rewire. Perfect. In the same time. So thank you so much, Ipek. It was such a pleasure. It's always a pleasure to be with you. And I'm sure we'll have other little interviews together to go deeper in some particular areas of emotional intelligence. So I want to do that for your time and sharing with us your knowledge and your life experience. It was wonderful.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ipek.